What has it been like living with cystic fibrosis?
I was 2 years old and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They gave me 2 weeks to live. Tested me for CF and he sort of said we can save his life, but it's very unlikely he'll live into his 20s and he'll never father children. I'm 44 and I've got a 17-year-old girl. My daughter was born and that was my sort of turning point. She became my why, and that's when I actually thought to myself, I need to actually sort my health out. If I could go back and speak to my 27-year-old self, I'd call him an absolute idiot, because I thought that to get fit and healthy, the best thing to do, because I was overweight, was to starve myself. And I ended up in hospital really coughing up loads of blood. Now I'm an advocate for health. That's where my area of expertise comes in. This is what I don't like about what we do in the health industry, because it's not health and fitness anymore. It's very much vanity and fitness.
What is one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to chronic health issues that you find with people?
Do you know what? I think...
Welcome back to the PerformWell Podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're looking for performance and wellness optimization so that you can not only smash your career, but also have a better life, better relationships, and better health. We believe that performance and wellness are yin and yang and work together. So listen in as we dive into topics that are going to help you optimize your life for the better. Welcome back to another episode of the PerformWell Podcast. Today we have myself, Dan King, as you know, and the amazing Paul Butler. He is an online coach. Used to be a PET and also ex-gym manager, mate.
Yeah.
What has it been like living with cystic fibrosis?
I'll tell you what, since I've started training, it's been fine, because I've sorted my life out, really, ultimately. It's not always been that way. Obviously, I grew up with a short life expectancy, really tough growing up, in and out of hospital. Never really looked after myself properly. You know, I got to the point where my daughter was born, and that was my sort of turning point. She became my why, and that's when I actually thought to myself, I need to actually sort my health out. But I mean, you know, I'm 44 now. The point of recording this, I'm 44 years old. And if I could go back and speak to my, 27-year-old self, I'd call him an absolute idiot, because I thought that to get fit and healthy, the best thing to do, because I was overweight, was to starve myself and just do a load of running. And I ended up in hospital really coughing up loads of blood. So, you know, you can make silly mistakes. So I've been through an awful lot in regards to getting myself fit and healthy. But now I lead like a normal life. You know, I do things that, you know, I still have to take nearly 40 tablets a day. I do physiotherapy. I do like AD, which is like airway clearance every day. I feel fatigued. I feel tired sometimes. But I train regularly. I'm consistent with it. I sleep well. I drink my, 2 to 3 litres of water a day. And I eat pretty well, 90% of the time, which it should be ultimately. So yeah, it's not that bad now, but it was bad as a kid.
Wait, that's wild, because I actually had to research this, because I know cystic fibrosis. There used to be a lot of people that didn't make it past a certain age.
Yeah.
And I think it was children who were even dying.
Yeah, I mean...
Back in the 50s
so
or 60s.
The harsh reality I was dealt with before I even knew it, really. I was 2 years old and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They gave me 2 weeks to live. Luckily, a doctor stood me up because I was malnourished because of CF and everything like that. He sort of said, oh, right, I think we need to test him for CF. Tested me for CF, and he sort of said, oh my God, we can save his life, to my parents. He said that, we can save his life, but it's very unlikely he'll live into his 20s and he'll never father children. I'm 44 and I've got a 17-year-old girl. So medical advances have been incredible anyway. There's wonder drugs coming out it's been really, really good. Gene therapy's really been amazing in regards to what it's done for CF patients, which is fantastic. So now I feel like, okay, I've got longevity within my life now, but I'm just lucky that I made the decision to sort myself out, my health, back when my daughter was born 17 years ago. And I've been a coach for 15 years now. So yeah, it's completely transformed who I am.
Yeah,
both mentally and physically, because I was very much an introvert at school, very sort of closed off. We had all these charity days for cystic fibrosis, and not a lot of kids knew I had CF. I kept myself to myself. But now I'm an advocate for health. This is the thing. And that's where my area of expertise comes in, because I work for people. I resonate with people that have perhaps got health issues or don't look at health in the way in which they should do, and can overcome struggles and become stronger for it.
So with a chronic health condition like you have yourself, you probably get people coming to you because of the relatability element. What is one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to chronic health issues that you find with people?
Do you know what? I think the problem with, and the good thing with me as a coach as well, I don't really take many excuses, but a lot of people, not that they want people to feel sorry for them. A lot of these people just they haven't got the guidance to know that they can actually get fitter and healthier. They're told by the doctor to take this, and this, and that's it. Whereas in reality, they could make positive steps or positive, habits within their life for them to improve. So there is that misconception there that if you have got a chronic illness, that's it. We'll wrap them in cotton wool. When in reality, there are certain things that they can do, make that decision to actually improve their lives, little steps at a time, not drastic things like I did, like when I was 27. It's making the right decisions and moving slowly but surely, thinking of progression over perfection. Because the problem we've got in the health industry, it's all about all or nothing attitudes and shortcuts and, making silly mistakes. Whereas if you do things properly, you can actually be healthier for it. So chronic illnesses, I got a guy that I train, he's got cerebral palsy, and he's overcome a lot, including like bullying and stuff like this. It's so sad to see.
Is that Tom?
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
obviously know Tom, and he's incredible in himself. But he doesn't let anything get him down, which is fantastic. And if you overcome something, it just makes you stronger for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know Tom Marlowe?
I don't know Tom Marlowe. No.
He's DJ, and
he literally redefines what I would imagine was someone with cerebral palsy would actually be like in terms of what they can achieve.
Yeah.
Like he's doing really well with his career from what I've seen, and
Yeah.
obviously his health as well. Probably a large part of that.
Yeah.
That being said, for those that don't know what cystic fibrosis is, I mean, I had to research it to get a little bit more of an understanding because I've got a very rough understanding. What actually is it? Why has it impacted you in a negative way?
So, I mean, CF, everyone knows it, or everyone used to know it, as a lung disease. But it's really, ultimately, it's not, because it affects every organ in the body. So you've got a protein that allows sodium to go through your body. Okay, so you hydrate all the time, in and out your body. Right now, with CF patients, that gene doesn't work, or it's non-existent to a certain extent. And it doesn't allow sodium to go through, so you can't stay hydrated on the inside, which means all your sort of areas of moving stuff around your body is dehydrated. The worst thing with lungs, though, the problem with that is we don't only not being able to move mucus around our body, but it can stay stagnant and eat away at the lungs, which is a bit rubbish. But there are, like, for example, I can't have kids naturally. I Millie through IVF, so that's another area that it affects. I don't digest food properly, so I can't digest saturated fat, so I have to take enzymes to digest food. So this is one of the reasons why I take so many tablets. You got vitamin deficiencies. There's so many different things and ailments that I'm literally the point. And I did this post recently about judging a book by its cover, because I may look fantastic on the outside. I train well. I'm 44 years old. And I look like a picture of health, but on the inside, that's not the case scenario. So it does affect a hell of a lot more than what people think. Liver, kidneys, everything pretty much on the inside, because we're just dehydrated.
It's crazy. Yeah, I studied this when I was at university, and we went into a little bit of CF work. And I always found it very, very interesting how it's not just, as you say, it's not just lungs. There's like a whole assortment of things that can happen, and a cascade almost that's going on with it. What has been like for yourself? What was the biggest struggle when you've been going through the process of helping your own health, having CF?
Wow, yeah. Do you know what? It's making mistakes early on, I think. Like literally starving myself and running and coughing up a load of blood, hemorrhaging blood as well. My lungs would fill up with so much blood, I automatically thought I was dying, which was so bad. And then I had a bronchoscopy, dealt with that. I was in hospital for a long time and then come out of it. But then it didn't stop me from wanting to get fit and healthy. If anything, that was a struggle that I overcame, and it made me stronger for it. But then ultimately, probably about a year later or 2 years later, I ended up dehydrating so much so I ended up in hospital because I hadn't gone to the toilet for I think it ended up being 2 weeks, and I almost had a colostomy bag fitted. Luckily though, I passed that. The horrible scenario where they had to put laxatives up my bum, 20 bottles of the stuff, put me on this machine, move me around. It's just awful.
I won't ask you how they put it.
So that was not good, but luckily, again, that was another thing that I overcame, which ultimately led me to wanting to read more so about health and fitness, and how I could tie in my cystic fibrosis, my scenarios, with wanting to get fit and healthy. So I read it more about like hypertrophy, more about strength training. I think I read like Arnold Schwarzenegger's encyclopedia.
You mean that big one?
Big fat one, banging.
I think it's up there actually.
Absolutely, yeah. And in doing so, you sort of realise, I still. The thing is, it takes me longer to do a lot. I have to focus heavily on my breathing. We do a thing called AD, so I do that a lot before I train. Ultimately, I have to care more about recovery than what an average person would. So there's a lot to consider with what I do on a daily basis for me to overcome stuff and get better for it.
So do you think someone in their, let's talk someone into a 9 till 5 job with CF, do you think you, in the job role you have now, makes it easier to deal with it? Or do you think it's still a complex situation for both parties involved?
If I was working 9 to 5 or if my client was working 9 to 5, I think for me to be active is amazing. So I said this today actually, that I work in a gym in particular to help people that don't particularly do it online, that can't do it online. Like Tom, for example, there you go, he's got cerebral palsy, he's not going to do it online. But the good thing with me being in that gym environment, I'm always there. So it's a really easy situation for me to go out and train, program my own stuff, have a form of progression with it being ease. The good thing with my job, obviously supporting other people that not necessarily have health issues, but perhaps busy individuals that don't have the time, it's stuff that fits in with their lifestyle and how they can improve what they do on a daily basis for them to get better outcomes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like busy professionals, shall we call it in this case, and even entrepreneurs, people that are literally career driven, that are working their arse up every day, 12 hours a day, they never look after themselves.
No.
And they always come to one of us and they're like, well, I've got to the point now where I feel like crap. My libido is gone. I've got a belly that's overhanging now. I can't even see my junk below. It's unbelievable, mate.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable how they just like they put so much attention on their career and finances, and I get why people do that. Like I'm pretty sure we've all got ambition as well in that regard. But to see your health deteriorate to achieve that is one of the worst things you can do.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like I said, my main aim really is for things that can work within somebody's lifestyle, you know, and I'm very much based on habit forming, so massively, you know, I don't give it has to be for myself a slow progression. I don't believe in quick fixes. I don't, like I said, starving myself didn't do me any favors. I'm not into that. I'm not, you know, below maintenance calories, or, you know, well below maintenance calories and stuff like that. When you talk about people just wanting to lose fat and lose weight, to a certain extent, yes, but they have to incorporate some form of fitness that they can do at home. They don't have to do it in a gym. You know, 50% of my clients do training at home. They don't even go to a gym. Yeah.
Well, do you know what's really interesting? Like, you know, the jock at school, really, really good shape. At the time, I was super skinny. They always clean up at school. But then 10 years later, when they're in like late 20s, early 30s, look at them now.
Yeah.
Whereas the struggle that you went through back then has led you to where you are now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think struggle is what leads people to make these changes. And the earlier you get that, the better.
Absolute advocate of that, because at school, I could not compete with anyone. You know, I was a struggle walking upstairs for me because I couldn't breathe. So I'd do anything to get out of peeing games. Anything to get out of it. I hated it with a passion. It was only when I left school and I could actually compete with myself that I could realise that I can actually accomplish something, because I'm quite a competitive guy, you know. But for me not to be able to compete with others, it just does nothing for my mental health. But as soon as you know, I mean, this is why I did love that sort of form of running that I did initially. Did it the wrong scenario, but I couldn't run to a lamppost. Then before I knew it, I was running a little bit further. Catch the 5K is a good form of progression for somebody for that reason. You know, and we obviously care about progressive overload and getting stronger and whatever it be, and that is absolutely critical. So yeah,
I think it's important for people, as you say, to go through struggle. I've had so many clients who are, you know, overweight. I've had people borderline obesity, all those kind of characteristics. And a lot of the time, some people do come to me and said, like, I've always been bigger and I've always struggled with my size and struggled with my weight. And it's this kind of, but in my head, I'm like, but you haven't had enough to make you change over that point in time if you're still kind of at that point in time. Yeah. The one question I have is, when it comes down to stuff like obesity, do you think there's almost a point where, because a lot of people will blame it on, you know, they've got X condition, which means that, like, PCOS is a big one these days, PCOS, endometriosis, adenomyosis, as to why people are holding on to their obesity. I argue sometimes that I think as much as they're going through those struggles, that victim mentality comes in then, and they don't make that transitional change. And you said you're a very no bullshit kind of guy. Yep. So when you're having that conversation with someone, what is kind of one of the first things you say to them if they're turning around and being like, I've struggled with this, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah? Yeah,
I mean, what we do, obviously, is through check-ins a lot of the time, right? So, obviously, if you're having that discussion with somebody, I didn't manage to do this, this, and this, there's always that question of why, you know? And that victim sort of mentality is never going to do them any favours. So I'm very on a holistic approach of saying, well, look, you know, mentally, what can we do, you know, for you to actually change that outlook on how you feel on a daily basis? Because if you are going to play victim to it, you're never really going to achieve something. Whereas if you overcome something like that and actually get results from doing something with support, then, oh my God, what's that going to do to your confidence? What's that going to do to you getting results? And then you're not going to play victim. You're going to be stronger for it. And this is a massive part of our job. This is what I love. You know, it's that victim mentality. And I love the fact that, oh yeah, you've had a bad day, have you? You know, in scenario of what I'm going through and what I've been through. Yeah. It's great. You know, I'm in a great position because I have had hardships and I have overcome it. So I can pull on that a little bit when need be, you know.
Yeah. And it makes it easier to understand, doesn't it, from that perspective? Because, I mean, for like 18, 19 years of my life, I was very credited that I lived quite a healthy life. I didn't have any like family upsets, nothing like that. And I lived for kind of, I'd almost say a level of comfort, which then led me to throwing myself into moving away from home and 5 years living in a city that I didn't know anyone. Like I moved into Southampton and knew no one.
Yeah, too much comfort.
Too much comfort. Yeah. And that's the thing, people can get to that stage. Yeah. And I think sometimes with some coaches out there, and we probably recognize it, a lot of coaches can install too much comfort in people. Yeah. Like I was having a conversation with a chappie the other day, and he was saying he's been, for 7 years, he's tried to lose weight. And every time he's lost weight, he's then gained extra weight back after he's tried to lose weight. And he's been through multiple PTs to get to that stage. And I think it's a very common conversation that we hear from people. Why do you think it is that it's not very standardized across the industry? Like the kind of level of like, no, this is where we need to be.
I think a lot of coaches like the fact that people yo-yo, and they like the people that they will get them to starve themselves to a certain extent. You know, deprive their body, make them malnourished to a certain extent because they want them to drop a lot of weight really quickly. So they become the bee's knees when it comes to coaches. But ultimately, what does that do to the person when he goes back to normal? So I used to do like a weight loss course at Pure Gym when I was manager.
Pure Loser.
Pure Loser, there you go, Bosh.
what a name that is.
I think it was one of the first persons to do it. And that was when it was really busy. We had 27
I was
women
working in the gym
on
with
it.
you at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that was back
me?
then.
Yeah, probably. But the funny thing is, I would always say in the first session with those individuals, I'd say, okay, how many of you have been Weight Watchers? They'll put their hand up. Okay, how many of you have lost weight? Yeah, put their hands up. How many of you, lost weight, gone back to Weight Watchers? They'll put their hand up. What does that tell you? You know, they're not getting results and not sustaining results. They're on a Pure Loser course. So clearly it didn't work. Yeah. And, you know, we're in very much, this is what I don't like about what we do in the health industry, because it's not health and fitness anymore. It's very much vanity and fitness. Everything is based on how you look in a mirror. It's all shortcuts.
Do you know what? I think it's always been vanity based though. A lot on the social front anyway, the social media front. Like even back when...
Well, more so now because of social media. And that's why I think it's because of social media. We're seeing everyone at their best.
We're probably exposing it more like...
Yeah.
But when we first started Instagram, back in 2012, 2014?
Yeah, about that. Give or take.
Like it was very vanity back then as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Jeff Seed, Era, Zeus, all those...
So this is the thing. Back then, I was not... into social media, and I was into health and fitness for the right reasons ultimately, because it was all about health, and I think we've lost that a little bit. And the unfortunate reality I'm faced with what the problems I've faced on Instagram is it's trying to reach out to the people that don't look at health the way in which they should do. The problem is we've got people that follow us, but they're all into fitness, and they're all vanity. They all look vain. They all want results. They want a summer body. They want to look their best, but to what extent, and how hard are they going to go, and what mistakes are they going to make along the line?
The younger ones are always going to be, I think, more vanity driven, mostly just because of the fact that they tend to have less issues. At least apart from the chronic illnesses that we talked about. I remember being like 18 years old. I just wanted to look as good as possible. I didn't have any health problems, obviously, as most 18-year-olds don't. And as I've grown older, 33 years old, start to notice a few things. Still not old, my God. This man here is going to be saying me on words. But the thing is, like, you do start to notice it, and you're like, actually, now I probably should be a bit more wellness focused.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Things aren't as good as they used to be. Like energy's not as good as it used to be. Natural testosterone levels slowly starting to creep. You know,
libido drop. You know, there's so many different things that you need to improve ultimately for you to. I care about long happy lives. You know, and longevity, and you know, it's misunderstood a lot of the time.
There's so many pieces of content that have come out recently, though, which I love. I've seen, there's a guy called Joshua, I don't know, Ugatunde or something like that. He did stuff on TikTok for ages. And he did a video with his dad where he was doing like a squat. And he was like, I do this so then my dad can bend down. So his dad could bend down and pick up something out of the cupboard without being in pain at the age of like 80. And I think there is this it's a slow transition, very slow transition to functionality for longevity in later life.
Absolutely.
And in my head, what I try to kind of preach is whatever I do today is to help myself 40 years down the line, not what I'm feeling like doing a 5K PR so I feel better about myself just for this moment in time. And I think that's something that gets very confused over social media, especially, and I will throw shade at the algorithms. The algorithms push what looks nice.
Yeah.
But let's put out educative content. It doesn't look nice. So it doesn't get pushed. You wish it would push that way, but it's never going to be that way because it's whatever gets people to stay on the app.
Maybe the Facebook CEO, maybe he needs to do it. He needs to change the algorithm so that it's, or sorry, Instagram in this case, change it so that it's geared towards that.
It's very much a young person's platform, though.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, like, because a lot of young people were on Instagram 12 years ago or 14 years ago when it started, they're now creeping into like the mid-30s, mid-40s. Yeah. Now we're starting to see maybe the content shifting that way.
It's more like a Facebook, isn't it? Instagram is turning more into a Facebook, which I like. I'm 26, so like I'm very kind. I can go through different apps. However, if another app came out now, I don't think I could be asked to be told. I just about got in there with TikTok.
Clubhouse?
Yeah, I remember
that
Clubhouse.
That was supposed to be the next big
It wasn't,
thing,
was it?
That felt very short.
And now social selling apparently is the next big thing.
Social selling?
Like QVC, the TV sales.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like a social media version of that. Where,
really?
Yeah, like TikTok. Selling like live. Don't know how that's going to play out.
It'd be different, wouldn't it? But it's a different kind of side. But we spoke a little bit again on people feeling vulnerable. We came into that conversation. And I do think obviously health and fitness flares up a lot of vulnerability. But I also think in some regard that there's almost too much, like we spoke about Slimming World as well and vulnerability. What do you think is kind of a step-by-step process that someone could follow if they're sitting there listening to this right now and they've gone, okay, look, I'm listening to what these guys are saying. I have struggled with weight or I've struggled with a condition for a while. My health has not been right, but I am so confused and worried about taking that first step to do what I need to do. What would be your first suggestion to them? Apologies for interrupting the podcast. We know you're getting fully engrossed into this episode and we really appreciate you stopping on the video on YouTube or on Spotify if you found us through one of the search pages. Make sure to leave a review and a subscription if you haven't already. But we just wanted to interject a point here that me and Nick have 15 years of coaching experience between us and it's only getting better as we've got better guests on the podcast. The only way we can do that though is with the growth of our program that we've just released. We've got a 12-month Perform Well program which has just dropped and we'd love you guys to get involved in it. If you want to learn more details, make sure to head to the description as we've got our website in there, which can give you a full overlay of the program. We're looking to help career-driven professionals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and anyone dominate their life by improving their lifestyle. Me and Nick like to claim ourselves as experts in this area, and if you want to check out some of our other transformations, I'm sure you do. We've got some amazing people who have performed so well off the back of this program. Have a cracking day, and we really appreciate your time. Let's get back to the podcast.
See, that in itself is quite sad actually because they can be misinformed. There's so much out there, and like I said earlier about ultimately a lot of coaches making really silly decisions for one particular individual that wants to lose weight or whatever it be. And it's finding the right sort of information to make sure that they're doing something safely. I think that's where it needs to be put across properly. A lot of the point is stepping stones, making small changes for them to get the bigger outcome because we don't want people to lose more than £3 a week because it can be detrimental depending on how big they are ultimately. I get that, but we need muscle retention. One of the most important things we need as we get older is strength over cardio. So if they're dropping too much weight and they haven't got any muscle retention and they're not doing any progressive overload or weight training, that is detrimental to them as well. It's not just about going on a diet or starving yourself like Manjaro or whatever. This is it. Again, big part of what we do, unfortunately, is based on shortcuts and making silly mistakes. Like steroids is. We've definitely got a problem in this country with steroids. And it's ultimately to do with vanity. It's massive, and that doesn't lead to real confidence. It doesn't, and it's not going to improve your heart. It's not going to improve your health. It's not going to give you longevity. So I care more about the individual of them living longer. Not only, don't get me wrong, a lot of what I do is transformation sort of packages and stuff like this within 90 days, but it's ultimately for them to get to the point where they don't need a coach and they've done things in the right manner by building habits, because that is the fundamentals of what we do. And not only that, they'll look better for it. Yes, it's a longer process, but ultimately they're going to live longer and still look incredible for the rest of their life. They won't need to go on another diet, so to speak, because they have an association with food that's far better.
I'm glad you mentioned steroids because I did take steroids at one point. I don't know if you did, but if you have, fair enough. I did take steroids at one point, and I did take Tren. which is one of the most aggressive forms of steroids.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Like, there was a moment when I was on it, confidence levels were through the roof, obviously, as you do when you've got super high testosterone levels. But then that is only a very small window of your life. It's a 3-month period max.
Yeah.
And then you've got another 20 years around that or more where you don't have that confidence.
Yeah.
And to deal with that after you've had that high is so addictive. And it's so like, you never feel like you're as good as you were.
Yeah.
And
Scary scenario, I think.
I think unless you're like an elite bodybuilder,
If you're stepping on stage, I get it.
Different.
And I've coached people in the past that steps on stage. I've stepped on stage in natural bodybuilding. It wasn't natural, but yeah.
What, you weren't natural?
I was natural, but it definitely wasn't
the category you were in.
Put it that way. The guy that won it was definitely on something. But so there's definitely a problem in this country with it because we deal with vanity every day, unfortunately.
It's so easy to get started into it. I got started into it just for the same reason that a lot of guys do. They want to be bigger. They find it a shortcut. I ate like 4,000 calories a day at the time, which was a lot for me at 75 kilo. And I was gaining weight, but I wasn't looking the way. I was training all the time, and I was studying this. So like, I've studied personal training. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. None of it worked. No. Well, it did kind of work, and then took the steroids. Obviously, it works amazingly well. But the downsides of it were just too extreme. The side effects.
Absolutely.
The acne gave me confidence issues on my back, so I could never take my shirt off, even though I was looking in the best shape of my life. I didn't want to show it. Because my back was so full of acne.
It's a shame, isn't it?
It's terrible, isn't it? And there's people like that nowadays.
No.
Sam Sulek is different, but
Yeah, but it's mad,
if
isn't
you're going
it?
to step on stage, I sort of get it.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a pro, if you've got, I think what's a CBum, I think, like he said, if you get so far naturally and you've got fantastic genetics and you want to step on stage, by all means do it. But there's so many young bodybuilders that have passed away, unfortunately, because of taking steroids, which is so, what the hell? This is it. I'm an advocate for health. And not only do I get my fundamentals right, but I look good 99% of the time. Winter, summer, autumn, whatever it is, I don't have to worry about how I look because if I'm fundamentals and I'm consistent with it, my clients are the same. Ultimately, when they get to a point, they could just keep it going.
Yeah. And it's doing that same thing on and off. Is it like, no matter what happens, like I had a period this year when I went to India, I had Christmas, then India, then my birthday following suit. And I was, I'm away in a different country, so you want to enjoy yourself while you're out there. And I think I gained like 4 kilos and I did look a bit like a potato by the end of it. Yeah. But hey, I was a happy potato, if I'm honest.
Living,
but that's the thing is, people panic when they get to those phases, don't they? They turn around and go, I put on all this weight. What the hell am I going to do? I'm a failure. That's kind of where the route goes.
And then it's one of those, I've had enough, that sort of attitude. And that's when that can lead to like shortcuts ultimately because you make drastic decisions.
But then you need that. You need a little bit of pain. Like Tony Robbins said, didn't he? You were either running away from pain or running towards pleasure, and preferably both would be the most motivating angle.
Because one normally leads to the other anyway. Yeah,
and like some people says to you, oh, I really want to lose weight. It's like, cool. You want to lose weight, but then when you talk about why do you want to lose weight, they're like, oh, because I want to look good, I want to be fit in this, but they don't ever talk about the painful aspect. You got to get it out of them.
We have a big part of our job is pain points. I get that, and I'm not a salesman at the end of the day, and I say this to people. If you want a coach that's honest and one that's gonna, get you from A to B as safely as possible, and not only that, you can live longer for it. But you are right in the sense of having that conversation with people as to why they're in the situation they're in. And it's never a nice situation, is it? But have they had any real sort of hardships? And that's sort of my sort of point of contact because, yes, they've had this, divorce, whatever, lost somebody or whatever it be. And that's led to them to get to where they are now. But how do they overcome that? And that's where I think we're very much needed in that scenario, because they can't do it on their own,
Yeah.
I did, but I wish I hadn't in a way. Early doors, I wish I did have a coach. Because there's a good chance, with what happened to me with my bronchoscopy and everything like that, it's a good chance it's taken years off my life because it was that severe. But it's one of them scenarios where it's made me stronger for it. And having CF has only made me really resilient because of that strength, because of that struggle and because of that strength.
I tell you what, one thing we're probably going to be hearing, people are probably sitting there if they're watching. The one thing I know a lot of people have as a reason they don't come in and get a coach or a PT is price point. And I do argue that I've been seeing a lot of debates on social media about this. Should PT and coaching be made more affordable?
There's a bit of a shift in our industry, and it's a lot of coaches are just trying to get high-end clients. So they're trying to get CEOs of companies and stuff like this, and they'll just overcharge them because these guys don't care about money. Ultimately, they are rich as hell. Yeah. But I want to help everyone and everyone. Same. But then, exactly. So, but because of that, we've only got a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And we've got a career, and we've got ambitions, like you say. I want to grow my company and hire other coaches. So that's my area. That's my next area. So there has to be a price point, and they have to have value, or we have to have value in what they get and what they get out of it. And remember, what we charge them is the best investment they will ever make, because ultimately they're going to live longer for it. If you add in years to somebody's life, it's just nuts, isn't it? Yeah. And be better for it, be stronger, be confident. Have more energy. It's nuts, man.
And let's just say it is an entrepreneur and they are trying to build a business. Yeah. And you improve their health and energy levels, and it means they make more money.
Absolutely.
Then it is a return on investment on money as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just for everyone on other means, but
it's what we call high ticket. Is like whatever a coach can charge a person £2,000 a month.
Yeah, and most people, like, if they come to you and they're going to pay a certain amount, let's just say £200 a month, for example, they're probably spending £200 a month on shit food, going out partying too much.
That's what we say.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, well, just take the same amount, put it into this, change your life. When you stop, then you've got the health benefits and you've got the decrease in money eventually.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
It's a little bit.
It's hard to make it affordable, like you say, Dan. It is. Yeah. I think people see the price. I think, oh my God, I can't afford that. But really, like you say, they can. So make the right changes.
It's your time at the end of the day. Like, for what makes you a good coach is you spend time with people.
Yeah.
And you can't spend time with people if you're not paid enough for your time.
Absolutely. I would never undersell myself either. Yeah. My prices are my prices. And I wouldn't say, okay, I could do it for this, because it's just going to undervalue every one of my other clients that I've got, really, which is quite a scenario to be in. I wouldn't want to undercut them, because they pay a certain amount for me and my services. Yeah. They get results from it, but, yeah.
I tell you what, it's tough as well in our industry when we're like me and Nick when I was in Pure and Central, and when I first started up there was a gentleman charging £17.50 a session, even though I got told when I came in there you can't charge under 25. But that for me is slightly frustrating in terms of lead generation, for one. Yeah. Because a lot of people are always going to go for the cheapest. The amount of people that walk into a Pure Gym, and no offense if you are one of these people, and go, "Oh, was it not included?"
Yeah,
it's mad, isn't it? Yeah, it's mad. Like thinking they'll get a full.
But they don't understand. Those type of people don't understand what we go through, paying rent, how much we have to pay for rent. What we have to go through as a rent PT or whatever it be. They very much think that we're employed by Pure Gym. Or any sort of gym scenario, David Lloyd's a little bit different, where obviously they give you 50% of what you earn or whatever. But in that scenario, if you're new to a gym environment, you would make that assumption, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? With a lot of people forget that, and that's one of the things I used to tell people. If they were ever thinking that it's really expensive, I'm like, right, well, try spending about 600 quid on rent. When I was at Pure, £600 on rent. And bearing in mind, when I was on the shift platform that was there for me personally, when I was doing 12 hours a week, but I wasn't breaking even.
No, it's mental.
It's horrendous, isn't it?
It's just money,
James Smith did a video on this recently talking about that business model. But we know that business model works for it. It's the worst way to say it. It grinds out the people who can't cope with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been gym manager, pure gym manager, and the biggest part of people doing shift is that would be your way to get clients ultimately. Until you get to the point where, and this is how I started in the industry, is the same scenario. I'd get to the point where you could wither away the hours to a certain extent and say, okay, look, now's the time for me to go on rent. Unfortunately, you don't always have the availability to go on rent. The biggest thing with us being online is we can help more individuals and get more money ultimately overall, because it saves us time. Time is the biggest factor as a coach and a PT. PT specifically, because you are very limited on what you can do. That guy that charged £17.50, he's undercut himself, and it makes himself look really bad.
And I'd argue, so I'll just jump in real quickly, I'd argue as well, like with someone that is an entrepreneur or busy professional working long hours, they might not be able to find the time with you in a gym to train with you. Absolutely. And you don't go, most PTs, at least from what I've seen, don't go over the diet as much as they should do, or the lifestyle
My God,
factors.
I say this in my call with people. I've got like a presentation that I do with people. And it's mad because it's like what a PT what you get for that hour. And it's literally, oh yeah, how you been? You been all right? Yeah, okay, cool, let me go kick your ass. That's it. You kick their ass, they feel good, they go home, they eat crap, whatever it be. It's very difficult for you to manage that. Whereas if you do online coaching, it's a surefire way of you getting results because you've not only got the fundamentals. I mean, I do like weekly emails with resources and stuff to help the drip feed them information and make sure that they're learning as they go. But not only that, you've got like the other 23 hours of the day that we don't consider when we're PTing somebody. They still get a lot out of PT: form, motivation, that type of jazz. But online coaching, you've got not only a form of progression, but you've got all the habits included, making sure that they're doing what they should be doing through contact, which is so much better because you can actually take away and look at their whole circumstance objectively and say, okay, look, you've done this, this, and this. You need to do this. It's celebrating the successes more so than when it is when you see in PT one-to-one.
Yeah, and PT's just like it has been for me and Nick have said this a while. Like when you factor in like us as PTs, we are working such ridiculous hours when you think about being a full-time PT. Like my days start, I remember the most naive comment I ever came out with. I turned around and went, I'm not working past 4 p.m. Bollocks. It doesn't work.
I don't.
It doesn't. This is the thing. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And like, I literally sat there, I was like, why is my income not going up when I first started as a PT?
Yeah.
I'm only working from 7 till 4.
Yeah.
But I need to finish at 4.
My circumstances have changed a lot. I mean, I used to work as a PT, used to work 6 till 9, go home, come back, work 5 till 10.
Yeah.
Monday to Friday. Gosh, that's standard PT.
That's a standard PT
and
life,
that's a hard scenario to be in. And I would say as a manager, say for you, Nick, I would say, okay, you've made it successful as a PT if you get daytime clients. And if you want daytime clients, your time to go out on the gym floor is when they're there and talk to them. And that's how you get clients ultimately online, on the gym floor at that time. But I don't do that. So I work at JD, but again, I coach people that generally can't do it online, but I'm gone by 12 o'clock every day.
Amazing.
Hence the reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do all of my online coaching at home if I'm, basically during the later sort of afternoons and evenings, which is fantastic. I've got such a great balance. It's fantastic.
But we've got to mention, obviously, like there are harder jobs out there. I know we work crazy hours as PTs, especially in the beginning of our industry, but like we do have it quite good with the freedom aspect. We can make time for ourselves. A lot of people do work, jobs that are a lot worse than what we work.
Shift workers in the NHS,
mate.
Oh my god,
12-hour shifts, mate. Like these guys, like at least we've got a gym. Like we can train in a gym anytime we want.
Yeah, my missus worked for the NHS. She's just recently got a new job and she works from home now, which is fantastic. But the hours she was doing was unreal. Over COVID as well was unbelievable. And the fact that I was shielding over COVID as well, I didn't even see her for like 7 months.
Yes, but it's these people. So what can we recommend to them? Because they don't have the gym access that we have, as you see. They're not constantly talking about nutrition with their clients every day.
They definitely do enough steps though.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, we get accountability from our clients. That's what I feel. I feel like me training my clients actually gives me accountability to train myself as well, because I have to be there for them. It's leadership role, right? So what can we recommend to these busy workers that don't have the luxuries that we have in terms of the freedoms we have, of what they can do?
Depending on what they're doing and how many hours they are doing in that scenario. They're not going to always be doing those hours, but I would say break down the sessions or whatever they're doing, even if they're at home for 15 minutes, even 15 minutes a day of doing something that's resistance based, something that they've got a form of progression with, they can still get results. So I train a nurse that does exactly that. So rather than doing like a three day or 3 or 4 day week program, she'll have like 7 programs, but they will all be 15 minutes long.
Oh really?
She gets a hell of a lot out of it. But again, the fundamentals, obviously making sure that she's doing meal prep and make sure she's not having biscuits, because that tends to be a thing, because nurses just don't have the time to eat ever. So a lot of the scenarios I'm faced with is they'll meal prep, they don't even get to eat it, that's such a sad scenario to be in. But they're very limited on their lifestyle and what they can achieve, and it's very hard. Very hard. I mean, that's one circumstance that's very rare to a certain extent.
I've got a paramedic at the minute. Same thing applies. She said to me, she was like getting her food out to go into the microwave and heat it up, and she gets cold. Yeah, she's like, she can't even eat it, and then she's out for 2-3 hours. If someone's got like, I don't know, they're hemorrhaging or they're having a stroke or heart attack, she's out. Like she can't do it. We
say though, I mean, in that scenario, I say nuts are fantastic.
Yes,
because they're high in calories, they're calorie dense, but they're good for you. They've got a source of protein. 50% fat.
Sorry, Becky. Based on one of my clients, she's a veterinary nurse, and she can't have nuts. It's a shame.
Oh no!
I can't say have nuts. It's like I can't. It's like
bummer.
They're trying to find other avenues for it, but there's so many substitutes.
But Dan, my hairdressing client, he also works crazy hours. He'll come in the morning, pretty much every morning to the gym, 9 a.m. 10 a.m. he'll go start work, finish at about 9 p.m. Yeah, cutting hair all day, and he overlaps them, so he never gets time to actually have a break.
Yeah,
it's fucking insane.
Yeah, it's hard.
And Yeah, I don't know.
That's where supplements come in, though. I mean, it's supplementing for a reason, isn't it?
Well, he meal preps on one Sunday, 6 hours, like 80 meals, puts them into his freezer. I'm not even joking. Each one's about 90 grams of protein, 800 calories, and he will then cook it for the entire month and then just take one meal out every day, and that's him sorted.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing it.
Crazy. He works hours that are just as long as any nurse, and he can do that.
Yeah.
Like, anyone could do it.
Yeah.
It's just finding a way that fits into your lifestyle, isn't it? It really is just finding what works for you.
And making them, having the discipline to be able to do it, but making the decision that say, you could do that on a Sunday. You could do meal prep on a Sunday. And they go, oh yeah, actually I could. I just got to buy some Tupperware, bosh, I'm done. But it's just making them aware that they can make that decision. And, you know, it's a surefire way of them getting results.
I always find, I know you've talked about this before, that when you get them to schedule it in their diary, it suddenly becomes real.
It's massive, isn't it?
When you just tell them, like, do this on a Sunday,
Yeah.
is different than saying, right, give me your calendar, let's put it in,
Yeah.
let's start blocking things
Yeah.
out. And I'm surprised at how many people don't have a calendar system.
And that is quality.
And I'm like,
Can't
how
live
come you
without
don't
it.
use a calendar? How do you remember shit? Oh, it's in my head. And I'm like, what?
It really ain't in your head.
Ain't happening. No, it ain't happening. It's so difficult. It's like on the training apps we've got. Like I schedule in everything for everyone on there, so they will get that notification. They'll get the annoying auto message. I'm like, have you done this? Have you not done this? One girl who's wanting to lose weight for a wedding set that little goal, and every day she gets a message saying, "Track your food, bitch." That's what she just gets every day to remind her. I've got the bitch in there as well. It works for her.
Yeah.
But like, this is the thing. People just don't take these easy, simple steps, and it's not as difficult as people may
we
think.
say, like, obviously it takes 28 days for you to do something to turn it into a habit. So how do they get to that 28 day? You've got to give them reminders, man. They need it in their phone. They've got to
Kick
have
their
a diary.
ass. I
And
mean,
if they haven't got a diary, get a diary.
A lot of people want to get their ass kicked. That's. I've had so many people come to me. I just want you to kick my ass. It's like
Yeah.
literally, and I'm like, yeah. I was like,
A lot of people
fine.
like tough love, and a lot of people don't, man. I've realised that, especially with online coaching. You can. We have to celebrate the successes. I get that, but the biggest part I think is the objectives and what we're finding difficult and how we overcome that. And you have got some scenarios where you would say, okay, you could have probably done a little bit better there. Don't like that, but then they'll soon realise that it's better for them.
I got turned in. That's what I'm turning to now. Like when I first started, I felt I was kind of a very soft PT. I'll be honest, and I'm very open about saying that. I got called strict for the first time this week.
Oi, oi.
I know it's a change for me.
I would high five.
Yeah, I was just,
yeah.
but it's just like I think I just can't be arsed with people's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like people just chat shit about why they can't do things, and
Yeah.
I'm sat there. I've got my partner who works in NHS too, and she'll do 3 night shifts back to back, which will fuck her up hormonally, physically, mentally.
Yeah.
But she'll still manage to make the time to go and exercise for herself. But she's had 2 hours sleep over 48 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, I know.
but you've got to find a way of doing it.
You got to find a way of doing it, and making sure you do get enough rest and recovery. But that's rest.
But this
recovery
is it.
optimization
Nature
for
versus
me is
nurture.
crucial.
Some people just have had a different upbringing to others, and they're not positive.
Nah,
like some other people.
I think
are.
it's getting worse as well. With a lot of the kids these days, unfortunately, the parents are wrapping them cotton wool a little bit. They're not letting them out.
You said you're a parent, right? 17-year-old.
17-year-old girl, yeah. Mad.
What kind of parallels are there between like parenthood and being a coach? Is it quite similar in some ways, or is it?
No, it's impossible to. I've tried my daughter, so I've done her program. She's into the gym, which is fantastic. I've taken her to the gym a couple of times, coached her a little bit. This will make you laugh actually. So, her boyfriend, right? She's been with him a year and a half. He's got cystic fibrosis.
Oh wow!
Right. And if you know anything about CF patients, we can't be in the same room together.
What?
It's because we get transfer of bugs that can make us really sick, make us really ill.
Oh wow!
So you could have CF now and I have to walk out. But this thing called 5 feet apart, so you might be all right. But he's got cystic fibrosis, and the reason how that come about, I think, is because they studied it at science. They talked about it, and he was like, "I've got CF," and she was like, "Oh, my dad's got CF." So then they got talking, and that's how they became a couple. I've gone on a bit of a tangent now. Yeah, so he's getting into the gym. The good thing is he messages me sometimes about what to do and how to do it and all sort of stuff, and she's started getting into the gym, which is fantastic. But getting her to eat properly is a bit rubbish. She's rubbish. Yeah, she doesn't really listen to me. It's like, have you ever tried training your missus?
Yes.
It doesn't really work, does
it?
Yeah, and I've had this a lot, and it doesn't really work. It's one of them scenarios where they want to impress you, but if you tell them to do something, they'll question you for why you're doing it a lot of the time. very difficult.
Well,
scenario
I've had
to
this
be in.
situation with my girlfriend as well, but also my mum, right? I find it hard to train my mum. Like, not train her in the gym, but like, coach her. I know you've had some success with your mum.
Hold on, what were you going to say there?
Success.
I was about to say.
Success.
Good job. I was about to say, I was like, hold on. That's not that kind of pod.
I've got a lisp, guys, so just taking fun of it. But you've had some success with your mum with the coaching side of things.
Yeah, she's been great. But I think
I haven't.
It's
And
coachability though, isn't it?
Sometimes it's just, I don't know what it is, but like
My
when
parents
it's
are
family,
useless.
they don't listen
Never.
to you.
Yeah.
They don't listen to you, and it's like why? I've literally done this job for 14 years. I've coached so many people.
It's difficult.
Lost so much weight.
My dad in particular struggled with me having CF big time. He had suffered like nervous breakdowns growing up. He's manic depressive, so he's really struggled with that growing up as well. And there was a point, I think, I've been told that when I was 7 years old, I was in hospital and he had a mental breakdown and he actually put a doctor's coat on. This is really sad. And actually walked around the ward thinking he could help everyone because he was that obsessed with wanting to help me that he couldn't. And it really, really did his head up. Ended up in a mental hospital for a little bit, which is a horrible scenario to be in. But you got to understand, back then in the 80s, it was very frowned upon with mental illness. Now it's like, oh my God, everyone's got mental illness. Oh my God, ADHD. Like, but now it's like, it's actually all right. But back then it's very frowned upon. And that was a hard scenario for me to go through as well as a kid, and I couldn't tell my dad's he's very proud of me now, but he, up until a couple of years ago wasn't as proud of what, he is now. Now he sees me, what I do and how I help people, and he's super proud of me, which is fantastic. But yeah, that's very difficult. And he's got this sort of mentality where he's overconfident a lot of the time, so I couldn't ever tell him to do this and this, but he gets fit and healthy in his own little way. He goes out for walks and stuff like that. I couldn't say you need to do this and this. He wouldn't take that advice because it's coming from me. But he's been brilliant on his own, doing his own sort of form of fitness, and now his levels are fine. He's on the right medication. He's fantastic. He's overcome that, and he's in a really good place now. But me coaching him, no way.
It's interesting with family members, isn't it? When we're talking about relationships and partners. Current partner, fantastic. Like she's so on it with her training when she's like ice hockey player. So she just knows that she needs to be fit.
Yeah,
she's always described as like the fit girl within the hockey team, which is great.
Best case scenario though,
it's amazing.
It's someone you're going to train.
It's great because it lifts me up as well when I'm doing things. But the previous partner I had before, and fortunately she doesn't watch this podcast, or if she does, but she and even other coaches recognize it. They were the worst sessions that I'd ever have because you just wouldn't want to do anything.
No.
Like the hour or half an hour, whatever we had, was so challenging to get someone to train. But I think you get to a point where you almost sit in a hole and you're like, how the hell do I navigate this?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do to get these people training? And like, even when it comes to our own training programs, I'm the most self-critical on myself when I'm writing training programs. Yeah. My training program takes the longest, which sometimes in regards it probably should do. But like, it's like so much easier to kind of think about things for ourselves. And when you have family members out there, we had a lovely lady who asked us a question when we were at the harbour speaking thing, and she said, I've got a family member who just doesn't exercise and doesn't do activity, and I'm worried for their health. How do we navigate that? Like, how would you recommend people navigate that?
That's a scenario in itself, isn't it? I mean, people need to look at their health, and I think if they're going to perhaps raise that question, then I don't know, it's a scenario, isn't it?
I've always said, you know the old Gandhi saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
If you change, most people around you start going, oh, wait a second. They start thinking about it themselves.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't always work, but it at least gets the seed planted in their head. And then you can start be like, well, why don't you just come train with me one week?
Yeah.
Like, we'll do a session together.
Yeah.
I'll obviously do 120 and you'll do
I'd like to think that my scenario has inspired a lot of people to get up and go and do something active, whether, silent perhaps, and, they're watching my stuff and think, oh, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it, which is great. I'm all for that. Definitely. I don't want to, I can't support everyone. I can't help everyone. I can't help the 5,000 people that follow me or whatever on Instagram, but I'm glad that they can have something to take away from it and sort their lives out, which is great.
And people say it's like 7 hours. I think 7 hours content before someone's completely sold on a person as well.
Is it?
Yeah, 7 hours of content, which is why YouTube videos sell better than any other platform, because you can post 1 hours and apparently that correlates, but someone has to watch the whole thing. Yeah. But yeah, apparently it's 7 hours of content is what it takes for someone to actually trust someone on social media. By surveys, you never know what surveys are saying, but I can understand that.
Similar to the old days when you had to put flyers out, they said you got to do it 14 touch points.
Yeah, that's right. For them to actually reach
purchase. Yeah, dropping flyers off in people's houses, pure gym, love it.
Or walking around the little backpacks. They're quite cute, aren't they?
Yeah, but that's more of a trust issue at that point. People just but that little backpack with the thing on.
Little
I remember
backpack
that.
with a flag.
We had to walk through West Key with it once. So I was like, "Can I do this?" It was like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah.
But you see them about everywhere. I think
Those were
the thing.
good days, man. I miss those days, Paul.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Like when you were a PT, I was a PT. Dan was a fledgling.
I was a fledgling. I was at uni probably
at
when
the
you
time, I
guys were
think.
Because
I used to get you
yeah.
leafleting around Bitton Precinct, didn't I?
Yeah, but
It's my job as your manager.
I was
I
working
used
with you for a short period of time.
Yeah, I think so.
I was working before that at the gym in the High Street and then
That's
in
right.
Australia. So, yeah. Yeah, you did. I remember me and Yaz
That's right.
sent us out, got Greg's.
That's it.
Beautiful.
that's normally what happened. But I will say one thing, one really interesting statistic I picked up this year. So nightclub decline has been huge in the since post-COVID. I think there was 1,400 nightclubs in the UK pre-COVID. Now there's
Nuts.
400.
Yeah, man.
It's dropped massively. However, gyms in centralized cities have increased threefold.
Yeah, of course.
Which is mad, isn't it? But I see that as a very positive change.
Yeah, it is.
Very positive. I mean, I get the social life of the nightclub. Obviously, you probably went out yourself.
But now it's the social life of a gym.
It is.
This is why girls wear all the makeup on the sun and wear little to nothing. You know, that's their way of meeting people.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. You know, at least they're doing something that's going to prolong their life and get them fit and healthy. It's just maybe perhaps doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think so. Again,
yeah.
the social media
I've
conversation.
always said the
comes in
gym is the
there too.
nightclub of the day.
It is. You see in the evenings with the
Well,
youngsters.
it is for
though.
the evening as well now, yeah.
Yeah.
It does. I think it gets frustrating. I think people, again, watching this will probably get frustrated by evening gyms. We've all experienced that.
Yeah.
What was it, post 5 o'clock, would you say, boom?
Yeah.
Or even earlier now.
Again, I'm out of there by then.
How, sorry?
I'm out of there by then. I'm never there.
You don't get the stress of seeing that
see you
gym
later.
floor.
I've experienced it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Also, I've been a coach for 15 years, but not so much anymore.
It was frustrating PTing people. I think that was one of the biggest struggles I had.
You know what? I love that part of the job though. So
Really?
for me, if I had a plan, the fact that they would have to have a session with me. I'm not going to wait for a bit of equipment. No. You know, I would have to think on my feet and say, okay, we can't do that. Let's do something else. I love that. And even the fact that I would have one little tiny area of the gym and have a kettlebell, I'd know exactly what to do.
Yeah, you can adapt anything.
Anything and everything.
You can adapt anything.
Massive part of the job, and it would give me a buzz actually because I thought, oh, hello, we can't use that. Let's do something else.
Makes you look really good as a coach as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
Like
yeah.
you can work on your feet.
If you teach movement patterns, right, then you can do a movement pattern with any exercise.
Yeah.
Kettlebells, you said, a machine, cable, blah, 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 blah.
Underground strength, like from the 1800s, learn that stuff. That's incredible stuff, like Turkish get-ups and any house and stuff like that. It's just insane, Sandow and all this sort of stuff. The stuff that he used to do hundreds of years ago. That stuff come back.
Oh, you mean that? Oh, I know you're on about. Yeah, he used to have like a leopard thing on.
Well, yeah, he was there like the freaks of nature back then. You know, people would pay money to
balls.
see a circus act, and he would be the circus act and be an helmet and lift stuff. But it's, I did courses on that sort of scenario where you have to lift two things above your head, and it's any way you can do it, but you'd have to do it in a certain way, otherwise you're going to injure yourself.
I'm all about old school training when it comes to like the calisthenics they used to do in the old days.
Yeah, I remember that.
Gymnasts, obviously, back then, their physiques were like almost like modern bodybuilders to some degree, like physique maybe athletes. Just doing body weight and maybe a few like
calisthenics, man. I studied that. It's wicked.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't say you should only do it. I think you should incorporate it definitely.
Yeah,
100%.
I like the fact that we've done a lot. I did powerlifting for a long time. I did bodybuilding. I've done calisthenics. I've done long ass cardio, which is sort of great. But yeah, it's fantastic.
You've got to dip your toe in things. I think activity isn't just going to the gym either. Activity is like what we've said there. There are so many outlets that you can do. Pilates is huge. Reformer Pilates is huge. We were speaking about like bungee fitness is a thing. High rocks is the huge thing these
massive
days.
at the moment.
And loads of people are wanting to do high rocks. There was someone I saw, David Silva and Iniesta. They did a high rocks the other day in Spain.
Really?
Fuck it, why not? Yeah, this is the thing. Like everyone's getting involved, and there's so much accessibility. So I argue there are largely less excuses why you can't do it.
I'm also a great believer of working. You've got all these different elements, like different things within fitness. We've got strength, power, endurance. Whatever it be, balance, agility. If you work all of them, my God, you'd be an absolute machine. Yeah. But how do you go about doing all of them within 1 week? You don't. You have to do it in phases.
Well,
and we do things within goals, and we make sure that our clients are doing something from A to B. And normally it's how they look, unfortunately. But it can be, we can incorporate every part of that within their fitness regime for them to get the...
You've heard of the saying, jack of all trades, right?
Yeah.
Jack of all trades is a master of
None.
Yeah. But is oftentimes better than a master of one.
Yeah.
Is the full saying. So basically what it's saying is that having a component in everything is actually worthwhile. It's good to be adaptable and have a little bit of everything. obviously going to be a powerlifter or bodybuilder, you got to specialize. That's fine. Like I'm
Yeah.
not saying you have to start doing high roxes in order to supplement your training.
Yeah.
But you should have some level of fitness, some level of strength, some level of mobility, at least, to build a foundation that you can then be more specific.
I mean, I'm glad I didn't just stop at powerlifting. If I just stopped at powerlifting, I'd be a pretty crap coach because you know that
you'll
would
be
be
a lot fatter and you'll have
Yeah.
bad knees.
Well, no, do you know what?
You
I
have
was
6 herniations
niche
and you're
half a
fine.
pound. I was
Niche
strong,
stuffing.
man. I only weighed 70 kilograms. I struggled to put on weight.
Yeah.
And I always struggle to put on weight. But so I weighed 70 kilograms. I could deadlift 3 times my body weight. It's pretty cool.
What's that?
210.
It's 210, and I could squat 190 and bench twice my body weight. So it's pretty good.
It's really good, man.
Competition wise, that'd be pretty cool.
It was
But-
pretty good.
Yeah.
One last question I have before we round off there. Now, social media as a whole, you said you not do 90-day challenges. We're doing a summer shape challenge. PTs and coaches, we're continuously doing these challenges based around physique. But when do you think we can turn it around and start just doing challenges based on the transformation and the feeling with people?
Yeah, transformations, it's all about looking good on the beach. And I recently did a video on the scenario of people obsessing over how they look on a beach or their reflection in the mirror. It's like I'm reeling it off. Hoping it will validate them, right?
Yeah.
So if they start focusing on building strength over looking smaller, that's a scenario in itself where, you know, I don't want to be as small as I can be. Again, I made that mistake early doors. And that made me a better coach for it. So if you think more a case of, I want more energy, I want more strength, I want to get good recovery, I want to breathe better, you know, I want stress resilience, I want to not only look good but feel good. That's a scenario where it has to surpass those 90 days. I'm doing a similar one, a 90-day challenge, and like we all do, because we know that our business runs like this throughout the year. And we know January it's going to be banging, right? But really, the clients that we know that we get in December, they're the best ones to get ultimately because they'll last with you for so long. And it's not a case of we want that person to stay with us forever, because we don't. I want that client to get to the point where they feel happy enough without me. They've built the habits, they've sustained results, and they can live those results for the rest of their lives. That normally takes a good 7 to 8 months for me, for them to do it the right way in the right manner.
Yeah. Especially the ones that are really committed, for sure. It can take longer. And less in some cases.
I mean, I've had guys with me for years, but it's more a case that they rely on that accountability.
But I think you need a challenge of some kind. Doesn't have to be a challenge like a 28-day challenge like we've just suggested, but like a challenge that gets people to push themselves. Like it's called flow state when you're in that between that doing something that's too difficult and something that's too easy. Like being in that nice zone where this is a challenge, I can do it. And then just sticking to it and having
That's what we say, 1% better, isn't it?
It's 1% better, man.
Oh my God, Atomic Habits, bosh.
That's why I like what you said about focusing on a progression with a strength goal as opposed to getting bigger, because you're instantly getting rewards.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I have got stronger, as opposed to I'm not big enough yet.
But then there's that fine line. We talked about taking the shortcuts within our business, within our sort of vanity of the side of the business. And, you know, like everyone will take a shortcut. Everyone's on Mounjaro to lose fat and lose weight. Everyone wants to get bigger, they go on steroids. It's not going to do you any favours, definitely in the long term. And I'm in the cusp now, I'm 44 years old, and my clients generally, if you look at my followers, they're between 35 and 45. So these are the people that I care about most, and these are the people that are going to want to live a long life with their kids, with their family, do more with their kids, being able to, you know, when their grandkids run around with their grandkids and stuff like that. They're not going to be able to do that if they're on Mounjaro.
No.
You know, there's health. I mean, I'm more of an advocate for health. Don't get me wrong, you can look incredible. Like I said, I look good 99% of the time, and I don't make any drastic changes because I've got it down to a T. That's the point I try to put across to people. It just takes a little bit of time. And I do things in phases, making sure that, you know, I could give you day one, I could give you the ins and outs of everything that you need to do, but would you do it? No freaking way you would. Nobody can. Nobody can do that, because that all or nothing attitude gets you nowhere.
Nope. Not at all. And it becomes stressful for people too.
Yeah.
It becomes stressful.
Absolutely.
You go, here's a training program, here's your diet plan, here's some meal ideas.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, see you
Hack
later.
on, Look, sleep hygiene.
That'd be 50
like,
quid, thank you.
Yeah, it'll be 50 quid.
Goodbye.
Hack on. But like, I think that's the thing. Like, so many people come in and it's that expectation of weights on a scales, how I physically look. But the problem is, we don't have any other way of tracking what people are making progress from those areas. We have to take progress photos.
Yeah.
We do weigh-ins so then we can actually get calories. I always say I don't weigh you to know what your weight is. I weigh you to know what your calories are.
I love that transition though of mentally where people are at with their weight, and over the weeks they stop worrying about weight, but only through me drilling it into them that they don't need to worry about their weight. They just need to worry about their measurements of photos ultimately.
Wait, to be honest with you, if they lose weight, I'm even still like not super proud.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and they may have
oh,
lost
cool.
too much weight. They're over the moon, and I'm like,
because
do
if,
you know
if
what?
they're too over the moon with it, when they do gain weight, they'll be the complete opposite. And
Absolutely,
I don't want that.
And there's a good chance they've lost too much weight in 1 week, and then it'll flare up in the week after. Water retention is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you can shit a pound, can't you? Don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
It literally is. What was it? Jaden did a great video on this, didn't he? Jaden, a guy we had on the podcast, literally had a cup of water, stood on the scales of the cup of water, drank the cup of water, weighs the same.
Of course,
it's mad, isn't it? But people saw that, and me and Nick sat there and were like, it's clever content, but
do you
it's
know
simple.
the people that would go to the gym weigh themselves before and after a session?
I have that so
It's
often.
mental, man.
I've had it where there's a woman who
Like the
commented on
magic's going to
There was
happen.
only one time I used to do that, and that was when I was doing muscle ups, and I wanted to know how much I weighed on the day for the muscle up.
Yeah.
That was the only time because that was actually body weight dependent. But apart from that, it's so ridiculous.
I had someone who, there was on my TikTok, they commented, and they said, they were like, I did a measurement. It's a really interesting question they put to me. They did a measurement of themselves before a session around their bum, and then measured around their bum after the session.
After a glute session.
After a glute
Have
session.
you never done it with your arms?
After a glute session, and they said their glute size went down after the session. Now, my head goes, lack of glycogen, lack of hydration.
Or they
That's-
measured wrong.
Or they measured wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
carbs.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I've measured people, and without drawing a line around them that is tattooed, and I can do it every single time exactly the same place, sometimes you're going to deviate slightly.
Yeah, but this, in the scheme of things, it's pointless.
it is, yeah.
Absolutely pointless.
Yeah, because the thing is, as you say, foundations. If you feel better, you're happier,
But
you live a better
we've,
life.
we've all measured our arms, haven't we? Before and after.
I don't think I've ever done that.
You know done it?
Don't do it.
I don't think. I think you've done that.
Gained
I've
a
never
whole
done that.
inch, mate. One session. It was so good.
And
I
then
was in the old Rich Piana arm
Were you on
workout.
steroids at the point?
Yeah.
Says a lot.
I was Rich Piana arm workout, steroids. I was like, yes, an inch over. It's boom. And it was just inflammation. And it went down the next day. I was like, fuck.
You're like, oh.
What a shame.
It's like when people. Do you remember people? used to
Who said that? Like, you're always chasing your pump.
Oh,
Like,
it was
you're never
years
going to be as
ago.
big as your pump.
Yeah. Well, Arnie was all about the pump, wasn't he?
But
No,
people.
you're never going to be as big as your pump is
Yeah.
the phrase. So it's like you're in the gym training, you get a pump, you're never going to look as good as that moment in your day-to-day life. And so you're always chasing that feeling, but you're in the gym doing it.
How many people come in the gym? Have you had train with you though, and turned around and gone, "I'm coming here to look good before I go out later."
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like,
that's where party pump comes from.
yeah.
Come on, man.
So every Friday, Saturday, 4 o'clock, there'd be guys just training chest and arms.
I was all about that, man.
That's
But
ridiculous.
it didn't do anything.
My,
It went down
I
by
had
the
a business
evening.
idea once, and it was called the Party Pump Bus. So it would be going around town, and it would just be like a little weights room in a bus. Guys would go in, get their little pump on. Yeah.
Mate,
Pay
that
20
is the
quid.
best content idea
Have
I have
you ever
ever
done?
heard.
Yeah,
in my
amazing.
life.
Money in the bag, that, mate. But there's no clubs anymore. We talked
No,
about
yeah,
it.
it's
Have you ever
sort of,
done a post-nightclub gym sesh? Not a proper
Yes.
one, but like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I've done stupid stuff.
Yeah, it's
And I,
disgusting.
I still have.
With your mate, like, let's do some bench at 3 in the morning, just half drunk. and
Well,
you're
there was
just
someone in Pure Gym. I think they threw up on the treadmill because they tried to do a run
Yeah.
after going out, and they vomited everywhere. I think you know about this. I don't know if you were in shift the next day. Anyway, I think we'll round off there. I think it's been a cracking podcast, and it's been lovely talking
Cool,
to you,
man.
Paul.
Yeah,
Now,
thank you.
what we do is we normally shout out the people who are on our podcast. So this camera here is the one where you can plug yourself. So where can people find you? Where can people find information about your coaching and your services?
So on Instagram, I'm Paul Butler Coach. Bosh. That's the most important thing. If you want to book a call with me, it's Paul's Peak Physique, if you can spell it, .uk, which will take you to just basically a join page funnel where you can actually just look at my information and then book a call with me. Mainly Instagram, on Facebook as well, but I don't really market my stuff on that.
Splendid stuff. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate you so much, and make sure to stay tuned for the most amazing podcast of your life when this comes out. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and if there's anyone else you want us to get on the podcast, make sure to comment it below. We really appreciate everyone who stops on this one. We'll catch you guys later.
Ciao.